And then there was Amaurot. Never was a city more magnificent. From the humblest streets to the highest spires, she fairly gleamed.
Hello everyone, I'm Hash Brown and welcome back to the Shadowbringers Dungeon Lore series. In this series I hope to explain the lore of each dungeon in Final Fantasy XIV, as well as to be informative about maybe some more niche things about them. Today's dungeon is Amaurot. After the excursion to Mount Gol resulted in the return of the Everlasting Light across Norvrant, the Warrior of Light eventually heeds the advice given by Emmett Selk in the recent conflict, and with Ardbit's advice they bring the Scions along to find their way to the Tempest, the area of stormy and churning seas outside of Calusia. To do so, we visit the settlement of Sullen in Lakeland, and after investigating the small mossy island at Urianger's request, discover that it is actually an ancient being of the name Bismarck, a name shared with the White Whale of the Source. Urianger attempts to communicate with the creature, who seems disinterested, but with Feaul's help agrees to carry us into the depths. Taking the plunge from the Calusia waters, we arrive in the depths of the Tempest, beneath the stormy waves. After assisting the Ondo with some tasks, Y'shtola joins the Warrior of Light, and both begin to notice the oddly well-maintained structures amongst the millennia of rubble and coral in the Tempest. But unlike the latter, the buildings seem pristine, even resisting the force of a knife taking a chip of stone. Y'shtola surmises that the buildings must have come from long, long ago, possibly so far back as the Ascians of old, or in other words, ancients. We soon refer to the ancient sketches found in the Katana Ravel, particularly one of a great city on fire, and Y'shtola suggests we find some ruins that could match their appearance. After locating them, we compare it to the sketch and find it to be an exact match. Returning to the Ondo Cups, we accept a request to visit a famed craftsman for a lamp to illuminate the pathway towards the bottom of the depths. Grenault, the craftsman in question, seems dejected and has made no start on the lamp, but after the Warrior of Light regales him with the tale of one of the Warriors of Darkness, he finds his muse and makes quick work of it. Returning it to Tolsh Arth in the village, they finally grant us their blessing and allow us to venture into the trench, where a mysterious light apparently appeared of late. With the Scions and Ondo guide, we head into the pathway leading to the sealed barrier, release it, and head through the cavern until we reach an unbelievable sight. In the very depths of the bottom of the Tempest we find a great city, Amaurot, greeting us. As the Scions stand in amazement, Y'shtola comments that her view is much the same, discovering that the entire cityscape is made of a powerful ether, and rather than being solid like the structures above, is fully conjured by Emmett Selk alone, displaying the scale of feat an old-world Ascian is capable of. The city meanwhile seems to be on a perfect scale to what Emmett Selk recalls of the time before the Sundering, when the ancients all lived as one, and as long as they desired, the Ascians' perfect world. As an apparently accurate representation of the grand city as it once was, we can explore its various streets and structures to see what might have taken place there. At the entry point in the Tempest, the group uses the grand lift at the Akora Heights to descend into the city, but during its prime it would have been used to transport residents between the lower and upper levels. After reaching the bottom and heading along the main street, we reach the Polyleritide district, the main hub of institutions crucial to managing the goings-on of the Star. As expected for those able to govern at the time, the ancients employed in the district were those of great capability in the art of creation magics. Heading west of the Polyleritide district we find the Hall of Rhetoric, another large building where ancients would enjoy themselves, sharing many hours of debates over any number of topics, their practically eternal lifespans allowing them to converse for as long as they wished. The more insightful discussions would be archived within the hall and kept under a debate facilitator, who could allow access to any wishing to know of these greater debates. Leaving the hall and continuing straight down the road brings us past the Bureau of the Archivist, another important place for those versed in creation magics. As the ancients experimented with creating creatures of all shapes, sizes and characteristics, they would be obliged to visit the Bureau to register their creation, as well as to leave specific instructions on how to manifest the specific creation. By the same measure, those wishing to experiment with an existing creation could visit the Bureau and submit an application to access the information. At the time of the ancients, a man named Hythlodaeus was the chief of this bureau, responsible for overseeing the entire process. Further along the road, we come to a plaza featuring an aetheryte known as the Macaren's Angle. The name translates from the ancient world as the Land of Happiness, and although somewhat ironic in the recreation, the original place in the city would hold a bustling crowd at all times, often serving as a meeting place for colleagues and friends alike. Many would even choose to debate here as a more casual way to exchange ideas. Near the aetheryte we find the bureau of the Administrator, and similar to the other bureaus, this building was used for recording information, this time the residents of the Star. It was also used for applying for access to the Capitol, where the Convocation of 14 held audience. On our visit here, the Warrior of Light applied for a means to meet Emmett Selk, although he was told by the clerk that due to the oncoming threat of the final days, a meeting would not be at all likely. Travelling east from the Macarens angle and up another slope, we find the entrance to the Academia Oneida, the main research facility for the more advanced and wondrous beings made by creation magic. The Convocation themselves would often visit the place regarding creations, with the halls within even being named after several members. Turning left from the Academia entrance, the long stretch of road takes us to the Bureau of the Secretariat, the final of the main bureaus within the city. Like a more modern society, this building was used for all manner of documentation, including various application forms as well as a visitor's writ for the city and areas outside it. As the Warrior of Light is directed here from the Bureau of the Administrator, we surprisingly see many of the ancient shades waiting their turn for forms, and even chance a meeting with the Shade of Hyflodeus. Unlike the other shades, he appears to retain some sense of self as well as memories of the final days, and even notices the shared splinter of soul between Ardbert and the Warrior of Light. He tells us that our soul is a shard of that of Azem, once a member of the Convocation of the 14, and that this is the reason Ardbert seems to resonate with us upon contact. After collecting our application for a meeting with Emmett Selk himself, we move on towards the Capitol building. This place holds a level of grandeur even in its recreation, and was the meeting place for the Convocation. As essentially an acting government, decisions were made by the members here that affected goings-on around the Star, and those who count themselves among the 14 were renowned for outstanding prowess in their fields. The discussion of the final days would also take place here, as the Convocation debated on how best to save their star from its plight. With the Scions in tow, we finally arrive at the Capitol and give our writ of permission to the attendant, and Emmett Selk makes his appearance once again. With a disdainful comment about our lack of transformation into his expected monster, he admits that once the rejoining is complete, Zodiac will gain the strength to break free from his prison, after which the inhabitants of the Source will be sacrificed to return those lost to the god back into the world. He goes on to remind the Scions of every time a group stood against him, and continues looking down on them by reminding them of his people's unimaginable sacrifice.
Let us imagine that the laws of reality are again undone, and the world faces true annihilation. Do you honestly believe that half your number would sacrifice themselves to save the other? Of course they wouldn't!
As he turns to leave, Alphino calls to him, reminding him that we do understand his pain, and even share in his conviction, it being the reason that the Scions would not abandon their course. Furious, Emmett Selk bids us prove our worth, opening the grand door leading into a fire, a vivid memory created by the Ancient himself. He then heads into the flames, calling us forth into his realm, should we not succumb to the uncontrollable light first. Passing through the flames, we arrive in what is clearly another recreation of Amaurot, but this time during the events of the final days, with its people running and buildings burning and collapsing. We start just outside the entrance to the Capitol building, and we hear Emmett Selk's voice explaining the circumstances of the time.
The fabric of our star began to fray.
As he mentions the uncontrolled creation magics that created horrid beasts, we see one such creature appear and sap the lives from two nearby Amaurotians. Likewise, the creatures that appear throughout the vision are those created by the final days, beasts born of fear and panic, attacking us as we progress down the main street through the chaos. Even as we move along, fire rains down onto the path from the dark and red-tinged sky. Being another recreation, our progress is marked not by various landmarks, but by the part of the tale to which they relate. On a small plaza relating to Amaurot's first doom, we find the first beast, the terrifying creature we saw earlier. Clearly the stuff of nightmares, the beast's form has threatening eyes, several mouths and many wriggling feet. Emmett Selk even calls the beast unsightly as we engage it in battle. The beast seems responsible for much of the raining meteors happening throughout the city, but it initially uses a burst of venomous breath to catch any facing it head-on unaware. Afterwards, the raining sky strikes the group with several rocks, leaving additional meteors in their wake soon after. The first beast then retreats to one side of the platform, getting ready to call down a huge destructive meteor. Using the rocks to hide, the group avoids most of the blast, but the damage causes the nearby building to crumble, forcing them away from it before it collapses on top of them. The beast continues his onslaught of fire and stone until being overcome by the group, allowing them down the ramp. In the distance here, we can spot a flying creature blasting several of the collapsed buildings with a beam of light, but for now encounter more of the dread beasts along our path. As soon as the next set falls, however, the set of buildings to our right also collapse, falling all the way into the abyss, but thankfully opening up our next route. As we fight our way through, we spot the same flying beast on the right, unleashing more chaos upon the buildings, and again as we head towards what looks like an arena. Using another crumbled building as a path, we reach it and find Amaurot's second doom awaiting us. Although this creature initially seems not as dangerous as the first, its nature is revealed by Emet-Selch. Unleashing a chilling scream, it causes a cycle of terror, where those that hear the scream lose hope, becoming yet more of the fear-inducing beasts. The bellwether flies away, continuing to scream as hordes of other creatures appear. Battling through the throng, we eventually clear out all of the manifested beings. The second doom returns to the arena and with no other option, begins storing energy for an almighty explosion, only getting larger and stronger with time. The party manages to defeat it before getting out of hand, and Emet-Selch invites us to view the end of a world. On the other side of the ethereal flow, we find ourselves high above the unsundered star, clearly burning to ash as the dread closes in around it. More fearsome beasts lie in wait here, with the same winged creature lurking and firing directly at the group now. When looking at the star below, we can see the fire raining down on it even at this distance, and notably the size of it seems much vaster than any indication of the source as we know it. Proceeding forth, Emet-Selch tells us of his people's decision to rewrite the laws of the star itself to save it. However, as we approach the end of the dark platforms, he mentions a fiend wedging itself between ancients and their goal, as we see the flying beast retreat to the final area. We see the beast, Therion, fly in and land heavily on the platform, crumbling away some of the surface jutting out. It then roars and readies itself to unleash its wrath on the group. As we jump over to it, Emet-Selch tells us of a final harbinger, being Therion, that descended upon Amaurot of the Star, wreaking havoc above all others, speaking only doom from its many mouths. Its attacks include the various lasers we avoid earlier, with Apocalypsis enveloping almost the whole platform with its fury. The beast itself is terrifying beyond belief during the final days, and it was said that it was the driving force behind the decision to make a great sacrifice in order to save the star. Further on during the fight, it sends many of its heads to flank the group, again blasting them at either side with beams of light. After avoiding its rays and enduring the blast of energy it outputs, we manage to fight it off and the recreation collapses and fades, opening the way to face Emet-Selch for a final time. The Ascian appears and seems surprised at our success, though immediately claims us still unworthy, blasting the group away with powerful magics. He compares us to his fellows, noting us far below even the least powerful of them, and scoffs that with full power we would be scattered like leaves in the wind. One by one, our allies make their best attempt at piercing Emet-Selch's defences, only to be thrown back and struck down. The Warrior of Light slowly tries to approach him, defended temporarily by Urianger and Y'shtola, but soon the light bursts forth again and we stumble to the floor, struggling to stand against it. Although Thancred and Reen make an attempt to stem the flow, both are cast back and knocked out as we collapse to the ground, spitting the light from our mouth, unable to fight it any longer.
If you had the strength to take another step, could you do it? Could you save our worlds?
Ardbert, finally resolved, offers us his axe and his aid in order to rid the first of its threat once and for all. Joining with the Warrior of Light, they get to their feet and proclaim to Emet-Selch. Amidst the light where we stand, the Ascian sees the form of an ancient and appears shocked, but recovers right away. Just then, the Crystal Exarch II appears behind him, casting the same spell he used to bring the Warrior of Light to the first, channeling the help of several other heroes to defeat Emet-Selch for good. Revealing his true name as Hades, he dons the Ascian mask and brings us to the dying gasp to face us in his transformed state. With help from the other heroes, we fight hard against him, eventually forcing him to transform into a larger creature, bringing his full power to bear. After fighting back against the closing darkness with our radiant light, we defeat him and prepare to strike the final blow. In a desperate burst, Hades lunges at us for a final assault. Thancred breaks through the encroaching darkness and shatters a crystal of white auracite, with the shards latching onto Hades' body and growing as they absorb his ether. Our allies use all their might to channel ether and form a great spike from the body of our foe. Charging our own power, we call forth the Weapon of Light, this time a familiar axe, and as the darkness closes in we strike, clashing ether until our own grows rapidly, bursting through and banishing the dark for good. Emet stands with a great hole through his original form, and simply asks us to remember him, giving us a final smirk before vanishing to the ethereal sea for good. And that brings to a close Emet journey to restore his own star, as well as the tale of the Amaurot recreation that lies within the Tempest. With Norvrant saved from the light, we return with the Crystal Exarch to the Crystarium to find a whole host of its citizens cheering, with Arbrit remembering and envisioning his allies awaiting him there all those years ago. As for the ethereal city, Amaurot remains as it was before we fought Emet, seemingly retaining due to the incredible scale of ether required. This means that even though he is now gone from the living realm, his own memory lives on, however eerie, and the grand reproduction of a city he once knew as home. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more videos, and I'll see you next time for the twinning.